If you watched the last video and thought, okay, Ebony, I'm inspired, but how do I actually pull this off without chaos? This video is for you. Today, I'm walking you through exactly how I guide my students from idea to finished podcast using Canva and how I keep it structured so it doesn't turn into 25 students yelling into microphones at the same time. That's right. So let's build this setup together. Now, before anyone touches Canva, we start with structure. I learned very quickly, if you just say go record, what you get is chaos. So, to avoid all of that, I have created a simple template that walks students through the episodes like this. This podcast script outline that I've created for my students basically helps them outline their actual script before they write it out in detail. I try to make it a rule of thumb that I don't let students just freestyle academic content, because I want them to realize this is not a lunchroom conversation. This is what I consider to be structured brilliance. So to make this easier, I've also created a ready-to-use podcast script template that scaffolds each section. This is an awesome tool for my ESOL learners. It helps to prepare them so that they're not struggling as they write. Now, if you're interested in this and you like what you see, then there is a link to this exact template in the description box below. Next, we research. That's right. For this project, my students focused on science because, as I've mentioned it before, if they can explain it, they can understand it. If they can understand it, then they can learn it. So in order to do our research, we reviewed notes. We looked at key vocabulary. We identified examples. Once students got their research together, they drafted their scripts inside the template that I just previously showed you. As students were working, I required them to do several things. One, they had to write in complete sentences. Two, they had to use academic vocabulary as much as possible. And three, most importantly, they had to rehearse reading their script at least 2 to 3 times. And yes, we edit, because speaking clearly starts with writing clearly. Now here comes the fun part. I have students go into Canva and search for podcast cover. So this right here is our Canva dashboard. Once on Canva's dashboard, I direct my students to select template, and then we're going to go right here into this search bar, and we're just going to type in podcast covers. Once we do this, we see that there are a large variety of templates that students can select. But instead of having students to select from the group of pre-made templates available on Canva's platform, I direct my students to create their own podcast cover. This allows them to use their creativity to create. So students will go here and click this plus sign, which allows them to start at a blank template. Now, because our topic was science, let's just say for today's sake, we're going to create a podcast cover for plant and animal cells. So let me type in, I'm going to click on elements first, and then I'm going to type in plant and animal cells. Okay, so I see a nice plant cell here, and I see a nice animal cell here that I like. Okay, these two look great, but I want to add some color to my background. I want to use something nice and vivid. I like this color. Yeah. I use like a gradient background. I like that. Okay, so now we're going to give our podcast cover a title. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click the text icon, add title. I'm going to drag here. I like to go ahead and move the cursor here so that this diagonal line shows in the corner. And I click and drag, which allows me to expand it. I'll give it a title such as Cell Detectives. exploring plant and animal cells. I'm not too fond of this font, so I'm going to change the font, make it something a little more bold. That'll do. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to change the text effect, give it a little shadow. Yeah, I'll stick with that. And then I always direct my students to be sure that they add their name. So for today's sake, I'm just going to create some names here. Mike, Sarah, and Tony. Center it. So now we have completed our first step, which was to create our podcast cover. I try to make it my business to remind my students that the design should support the content, not distract it. So I tell them to try their best not to make it too busy. So I think this looks pretty simple. Maybe we can add a little scientist here. Let's see. There we have it. And I like to add a little border to it. So one quick strategy, a quick trick that you can use in Canva is when you want to create a rectangle, you just click R, hold it down, and it will automatically generate a rectangle for you. So I'm going to take this rectangle, place it here. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a transparent background because what I'm doing is trying to create a border. We're going to click the stroke style here. And we're going to extend the weight to give it a border. And I feel that that gives the podcast cover a nice polished look. Now, since our podcast cover is completed, I'm going to walk you guys through how to record. So the first thing we're going to do is, I don't know why, but when you look at these icons over here on this side, you don't really see anything that helps to identify that you should record. If I were to scroll down, of course, I see the icon that says audio, but this is for you to add sound. But if you want to record yourself speaking, what you're going to do is you're going to click on this upload icon and you're going to upload. And what you're going to do is you're going to click record yourself. And what we want to do is we want to record ourselves with a talking head. So I'm going to click talking head, record with the talking head here. And I'm going to click allow while visiting the site. I'm going to also make sure that it gives me, I'm also going to give my microphone permission. Record here. And as you can see, I am here in this little circle. If I don't want my face to be visible, I would just click here and it would actually take off my camera. But I don't mind having my image here. So this is where we record. Now, before I record, I try my best to encourage my students to rehearse their recording several times so that they can go back and listen, not rushing to have it completed. Why? Because less pressure, easier editing, and better clarity. And yes, I know rehearsing can be time consuming, but it will be worth it in the end. In my image here. So I am in. I'm going to click on this icon right here, which says record. It counts down. Hello, welcome to today's episode of Cell Detectives, where we're exploring plant and animal cells. I'm so excited to have you here today. I'm just going to stop. Now I'm going to press play to go back and listen to it to just see how it sounds. Hi, welcome to today's episode of Cell Detectives, where we're exploring plant and animal cells firsthand. We're so excited and delightful to have you here with us today as we share what we've learned all about plant and animal cells. Okay, this footage sounds pretty decent. So I am going to save and exit. All right, And what I like to do is I'm going to minimize this and make my image here very small so that it is not overpowering the cover. And there we have it. So now we've created our cover for our podcast. We've created our audio for our podcast. Now I'm going to minimize the actual talking head right here by taking my cursor, placing it on the corner, and I hold it there until this diagonal line shows up. I'm going to click and drag to get it to the side that I want. Move it here so that it is not overpowering the cover. Now, I'm always trying to stress to my students that no one hits record code. We always practice. So this step right here may take some time, but it's okay. Once they've finished, we're going to download the finished product as an MP4 or an audio file. So in order to make that happen, what we do is we'll go over here and I'm going to click this button or icon that says share. I'm going to click right here where it says download. Once in download, we want to keep it an MP4 video. Okay, so I'm going to click download here. And as you can see, it is downloading here. Once it finishes downloading, we're going to take this file. Then we share our finished podcast on platforms such as Google Classroom, your school's learning management system, or even keep it private and just showcase it in class. You don't have to publish this to the world. Start safe, start internal. Waiting for it to download. So here is our download file here. I'm going to double click it. And as you can see, this is my actual podcast. All right, now let's talk about grading. Because if you don't have clear criteria, then this can feel subjective. So I've created a grading rubric that evaluates content accuracy, organization, speaking clarity, academic vocabulary, effort, and preparation. If you're interested, I have included a link to this document as well in the description box below. Now, of course, I know what you're thinking. Yes, I share this rubric with students before they record. Why? Because students perform better when expectations are clear. Rubric here where they can actually assess before they get to the point where I'm actually grading them. This gives them an opportunity to go back and redo or elaborate further if that is necessary. This rubric keeps it structured and fair and saves you from listening to 25 podcasts wondering what in the world are you even scoring. If you want this to work in your classroom, remember this. 1, structure first. 2, creativity second. Podcast isn't powerful because it's trendy. It's powerful because it gives students a voice with purpose. So, as previously stated, if you want the podcast script and grading rubric that I've used with my students, I've included the link to these exact documents in the description box below. And if you haven't watched my first video, where I explain why this works so well, start there. Until next time, teach it with purpose, create with strategy, and build income with confidence, the easy street way. And remember, dreams don't work unless you do. See you next time.